Hello, and thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Bite Size Cybercrime, the podcast where we discuss cybercrimes and cybersecurity news. Today we're going to be talking about a very major attack on a medtech company called Stryker, which was hit by malware in an attack by an Iranian threat actor group known as Handala. Stryker is pretty huge in the medtech industry. They manufacture products from stretchers to surgical tools to neurotechnology equipment, and are an absolute giant in the healthcare industry. Chances are, if you work in the medical field, you've seen or even used their products. Well, Handala claims to have stolen 50 terabytes of data, and that's usually where things end in this sort of scenario. Maybe some ransomware and extortion, and you call it a day. But Handala was not quite done with Stryker. After stealing the data, they deployed malware that wiped tens of thousands of systems across Stryker's network. Those systems are toast. They're gone. The data on them, gone. Offices globally had to shut down, and they have offices in many different countries across the world. Reports from employees around the world said that their computers and work-provided phones were completely wiped overnight, a fresh install with no data. What's worse is some employees also just had personal phones enrolled in device management, which is pretty common these days, except maybe it shouldn't be, because their personal phones were also remotely wiped too. That data being lost now if it wasn't being backed up, and, well, honestly, a lot of people are bad at backing up their data, myself included. Staff were instructed to remove the management profiles from all their devices to avoid more of them being wiped, and the offices that didn't shut down had to go back to good old-fashioned pen and paper operations because computer systems were entirely unavailable, as was any of the data on them. On March 11th, Stryker confirmed what officially had happened. Not an incident, not a mistake, but that a hacker had targeted them. They claimed no ransomware was involved, and once they launched their emergency incident response plan, that they had managed to contain the incident. That sounds good, but the incident being contained just means it won't spread any further. It doesn't mean that it's resolved. It doesn't mean that they'll get any of their data back. Their operations are still being disrupted as they slowly work to rebuild what was lost, and as they go back to very manual operations for, frankly, a lot of things that were done on computers. Due to the attack, Stryker will likely be extremely delayed in receiving, processing, manufacturing, and shipping orders out, but thankfully, any patient-related services within hospitals or other medical centers remain completely uninterrupted. No medical devices themselves seem to have shown any signs of compromise so far. Thankfully, this means patients are safe, and hospitals don't have to worry much about a possible shutdown due to malware being on medical devices, which of course would be an absolute nightmare scenario, especially in emergency room situations where things have to run 24/7 and they cannot afford any disruptions. Seriously, in a lot of hospitals, they don't even want downtime to upgrade their computers to the latest major version because everything needs to be up and running all the time, and so things are often left unpatched. I've seen a lot of hospital equipment that is running very old versions of Windows that it should not be running now. As late as 2020, I've seen Windows 7 or even XP on some of these machines. It's very scary when you think about it. There's not even really extended support being offered for these products anymore, so it is really good that this attack has not spread into any hospital systems. Given that the threat actor is Iranian, this is kind of linked to the conflict between the United States and Iran that is going on. This very likely played an influence in the attack. Iran disrupted a major medical technology provider for the entire country to strike fear and send a message. It does make you think about, well, what if they did target the actual hospital equipment themselves? How would we move forward from that? What would happen to us? Handala was extremely quick to claim responsibility for the attack, even before Stryker had officially announced that they had been under attack. And since there was no ransomware involved, there really wasn't much financial motivation. It seems to be pretty much entirely politically motivated, from what I can tell at least. This kind of attack these days is not very common, because a lot of times these types of attacks are financially motivated. You get ransomware, the ransomware attackers don't actually want to destroy any of your data because they want you to pay them to get that data back. If they destroy it, well, they can't do that. Unless certain ransomware groups make a mistake when writing their ransomware using Claude AI and not verifying to see what it actually does. But this, however, was very intentional. This was not ransomware. This was a politically motivated attack to destroy data and really put Stryker in a very, very, very bad place. Given the absolute size of Stryker, they will definitely recover from this. Not unscathed, be it. There will be a lot of things they need to rebuild, and it is going to be an incredibly expensive project. Not including all the data that was lost, because that's something you can't really get back. And it seems like their backups either weren't working or are not able to be deployed. That's at least the vibe I'm getting here. If that's the case, it's really bad. Stryker currently doesn't even have an ETA for when they will be back to full normal operations again, which is quite concerning. And it really shows just how absolutely massive this attack was to their operations. It has now been 5 whole days since this attack, and things are still not looking very good for them. Thank you to Bleepy Computer, Security Weekly, and Reuters for information on this attack. It is honestly very scary, not gonna lie, but also rather interesting. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bite Size Cybercrime. Of course, thank you for tuning in this week. And until next time, stay secure.